This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to a game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk before a big one tonight at Canada Life Center between the Jets and the Nashville Predators. Two playoff teams as of today, and Nashville being the hottest team in the National Hockey League since the Preds were told, no you two at the Sphere. Focus on hockey, and they haven't lost in regulation since. This is going to be a good one tonight. We'll break it down with both Murat as well as a Max Herz, who is the Predators radio pre-post and intermission host, and find out how the heck the Preds have turned this season around and who's been carrying the mail for them as they come in red hot, looking to further solidify their playoff position. As far as the Winnipeg Jets goes, they're looking to take advantage of a very nice deed by our old pal Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers last night with a thrilling 3-goal comeback in the third period to beat the Dallas Stars. Not only did that make Jet fans very happy, it made Coolbetters and lock shoppers happy because that's what we needed for that partner parlay to hit yesterday. So it was a great, great night for hockey viewing. Only 4 games tonight, but that's fine because we're going to be locked in on Jets and Preds tonight. I believe it's a 6:30 start. We'll get to that coming up right away. We will also welcome in, at the end of the program, another new member of the Winnipeg Sea Bears. Looking forward to that. And we'll have an extended conversation on the Winnipeg Jets post-trade deadline with your favorite and mine, Murat of The Athletic. Let's get this show on the road. Shout out to everyone listening on the podcast. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day. And, of course, everybody hanging with us live on YouTube right now. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, and make sure you have hit the subscribe button to the channel. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, got to thank the sponsors that make this show possible each and every day. We couldn't do it without the great people of Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, the Winnipeg Jets, Little Brown Jug, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Consolidated Supply, Manitoba Battery, Canadian Club, Modern Man Barbershop, as well as Royal Sports, and of course the great people at Boston Pizza. Will also get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Let's get Remis in here, and as we welcome everyone in chat, and welcome to you, Rima. What's up? How are you?
Feeling good, yeah. Big game last night. We said it was going to be a big tilt between Florida and Dallas, and certainly lived up to the hype with Florida coming back and winning 4-3. Most importantly, in regulation, so you don't have any dumb loser points. It's funny, I was playing hockey last night, come in the room, and wow, I'm like, whoa, Florida beat Dallas, and everyone's like, well, was it in regulation though? Because winning just isn't enough. And yeah, shout out to Florida for that, and Colorado won yesterday, so we are kind of in the mood here for standings watching, as we have been all season, basking in the glow of the Winnipeg Jets being first in the West at times and now second in the West by points percentage. But here they are battling for that Central Division title, and a big tilt tonight. Jets Preds, they've played twice this year, 1-1. The Jets have had one at home. The Predators won the game that was there, and they'll play one more time after this on April 9, and a big matchup and always gives you memories of Central Division rivalry, including their playoff series in 2018. But it's a new season, 2024, and Nashville's coming in on a heater, 8-0-2 in their last 10.
You know what? We're, as you said, we'll dive more into the Preds in just a minute. But you mentioned with that loss by Dallas last night, the Jets come into this evening 2 points back of Dallas with 3 games in hand once again. So a win tonight for the Winnipeg Jets would put them into first place in the division, and they would have a 2-game cushion on the Dallas Stars with games remaining to play. The Avalanche, for their part, had a big comeback win last night. They didn't start very well, but then it was all Colorado and Calgary. They win 6-2. So the Avs have actually tied the Jets right now in the standings at 87 points. The Jets do have 2 games in hand on Colorado. So a win tonight would put them 2 up on Colorado, would tie Dallas. And again, the Jets would have 1 in hand on the Avs after this evening. Or actually, no, sorry, because Colorado is actually in Vancouver tonight. So they're playing the second end of a back-to-back. So depending on what happens, bottom line is the Jets are going to have 2 games in hand on both of these teams tomorrow and could wake up in first place in the Central Division if they get it done. But the Preds have been, the story of the last month in the NHL. At one point, they were down there, basically tied with Minnesota and, scratching away with St. Louis and the Seattle Kraken. They are now actually ahead of both the Vegas Golden Knights and the Los Angeles Kings, albeit they played 2 more games than LA, 1 more game than Vegas, who did scratch out a win last night. A late goal to get it to OT, and then Jack Eichel wins it in overtime. But the Preds comfortably in a playoff spot right now and, pushing to really solidify that. It's unrealistic that I think they could get into the top 3 in the West, considering they are 9 points back of both Winnipeg and Colorado. And again, the Jets have games in hand on Nashville as well. But a very, very significant game tonight here in Winnipeg. And when we're talking about the West standings overall, a very significant one late in Vancouver once we're finished up in Canada Life Center between the Avalanche and the Vancouver Canucks, who are first in the West right now with 91 points through 66 games. Just a quick aside, Reem. I wanted to put this to you. I was thinking about this last night, now that you bring up regulation wins and losses. And I was out picking up a sub, and I was watching, while I was waiting, I was watching the Calgary Colorado game, and whatever. It was basically more because of our parlay. I'm thinking, well, at least if they could tie this game and win it, we would win. But then I was thinking about the standings, and it got me thinking. We were talking yesterday about how the hill that I will die on, every game should be worth 3 points, period. Would it be better if instead of the current system where they give 3 points for an overtime game or a shootout game, they gave out 1? So if you win in a shootout or regulation, you get 1 point and 0 if you lose. And again, 2 points for a regulation win. Would that be better than the present scenario right now? It would still be lopsided. It wouldn't be the same amount of points for every game. Mm-hmm. But in fact, it would be less points given out for overtime and shootout games than right now regulation wins. I was thinking about that last night and again this morning, and I think I would like that more. And I can tell you that at the end of games, you would not see teams just more than happy to sit back and get their single point and then see if they can get the extra one. It would really push teams in the final minutes of regulation to try to win those games in regulation. And if they didn't, they're only playing for half the credit of what a regulation win would get you.
Yeah, I think each game should be worth the same number of standings points, and you should reward winning in regulation over winning in overtime over winning in a shootout. So figure out some way to do that. They do have the ROW tiebreaker, which is why, Minnesota pulled their goalie in overtime, because they need to, ramp up the numbers there. They're 29 and they're chasing, Nashville's got 35 regulation overtime, and LA's got 31, Vegas 31. So No, I don't know. I just think like the 3-2-1 system seems to be.
Well, listen, granted, yes, absolutely. But
Yeah.
if that's off the table, would it be better for hockey right now
Oh,
if the regulation wins were worth 50% more than an overtime win or a shootout loss, and the loser point is over? You don't get anything just for getting to overtime. And if you're able to win in 3-on-3 or in a shootout, which again is not the same as winning in regulation, you get something, but it's not the same as a regulation win.
anything's better than what they have now. Unfortunately, they don't seem to have an appetite to change it. I don't know why. Well, we know why, because it makes it seem like the teams are closer. But I think if you had 3-point games and had teams forced to try to win in regulation, maybe you would have guys actually being able to move up in the standings late in the season. But we're all have our eye on 3-point games here as the season moves along and you go towards the playoffs, and we know that it is very tough to make up ground because of that. And if it's a close game, you'll probably see the Jets and the Preds just try to get to overtime and roll the dice there. So I don't know. We can debate this like so often.
I'll put that
but
into the chat, and I'm
yeah.
seeing some interesting. I'm seeing some interesting comments here. And listen, Schickster, Huss, you have the same impact with 3-2-1. I know. I have been on the top. That is the hill that I will die on. 3-point games. It is the way things should have been. The minute they introduced the shootout or 3-on-3 overtime, anything like that, they needed to go to that format, which is the format you have in pretty much every other league. Shout out to the women of the PWHL for having their ducks in a row and making that happen. But I'm just saying, if that is off the table, it seems like the NHL likes this perceived fake, what's the word I'm looking for?
Parody.
Parody. Yes, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. This conceived parody of it. This would keep teams closer in the standings. But it would reward teams more for the 60 minutes of being played as opposed to the bit. Now, I know Bridget likes the 1 point for a close game loss. I mean, that's fine. But, I mean, I still, every single time of year we get to the standings, we're watching teams that you're battling against go to overtime, and both benefit from getting to OT, and one team gets the same benefit if you'd won it in regulation. But again, a lot of my argument goes back to thinking about think about these games in the last 5 minutes of regulation. You can have a great game for 55 minutes, and if it's two teams that are like right there on the playoff line from East and West, it's almost a gentleman's agreement half the time just to get this thing to overtime. Both teams get their points. It doesn't hurt either team playing in the game, and then they go out and do the 3-on-3 OT or the shootout for the extra point. Then you see some people like, oh, the shootout sucks. Well, listen, as a fan, the shootout is awesome. I mean, I'd way rather watch a shootout than just go home and say, thanks for coming, it's a tie. But again, the weight they put on the shootout games should not be the same, in my opinion. And if they're not going to go to a 3-point game, I actually think I would prefer to have less of a reward for the team winning in overtime or a shootout and nothing for the team that loses, as opposed to the way they have it right now. Let us know if you're watching afterwards, interested in your thoughts in the comment, and you can give us your thoughts on the Why Not question of the day in the chat for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. All right, Schickster, this is interesting, Remo. Schickster did the math. For the last 5 years, 22% of games went to overtime. That's on average, and NHL gave out 2.23 points per game. Definitely sucks if you won in regulation.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this so much, like the standings points, and I think it becomes more into focus this time of year when teams are battling for position. But we all know that it's dumb, and anyone can see that obviously a regulation win should be worth more than an overtime or shootout win. And these games where they hand out 3 points, some games they hand out 2, is dumb. So it is what it is. Like I know we talked about this like yesterday. We talked about it a lot. So
Yeah, you know what? I like Dom Zappia. Shootout is terrible. Stonewall Dave, the shootout sucks. OT's almost as big a gimmick. If neither team wins after 60, just let that be the result. Like, do you guys ever buy tickets? Like, do you guys ever go to games and spend money and watch this? Like, who wants to just shut it down after that? No one does.
I do.
I mean, there's an entertainment component of this, of people that are, I mean, I can tell you, I don't think there's any people that spend a lot of money going to these games that are looking to go home. You see anybody walking out of the building when the shootout starts? No.
I would.
Overtime? Definitely not. Is it contrived? Is it something that we would never want in playoff hockey? Yeah, but this is also an entertainment product, and I don't think anyone can dispute the fact that the 3-on-3 overtime is usually pretty fun to watch, and it gets people into it. And if that, I mean, listen, they just can't go forever on that because of what it does to the players. And you know what? The shootout is damn exciting, and people are into it. But again, it shouldn't have. This all goes back to if they were just playing for the single point and the regulation win was worth 3, this wouldn't be the big issue. But as you're right, Remis, this is something that comes up all the time. We could talk about it for 2 hours, and we would all have our same opinion that we started with at the beginning of the show. So let's get to this game tonight. This is a big one for Winnipeg, I would say. You know, you've got the Ducks coming in on Friday, a very winnable game, a great start to the road trip. To the homestand on Monday, a big road trip against some tough teams starting on the weekend. A huge opportunity for the Jets to really get on a roll, take advantage of this time at home, considering the plight they're in, going toe-to-toe night after night with Dallas and Colorado for the very valuable top spot in the Central.
Yeah, this is a really busy upcoming stretch for the Jets. This is their 10th game right now in a stretch where they play 21 games in 39 days, once every 2 days. They got 3 road back-to-backs. They had one was last weekend. And you're playing the Predators. They're battling for a playoff spot. They've split the game so far. Although at home, the Jets have won 4 straight here, Huss, versus Nashville and Kyle Connor. I mean, he's really, torched them, and Mark Scheifele as well. So we're looking forward to seeing that top line. No lineup changes here for the Jets. We're hoping for some Velarde update, but there is none. He didn't skate, and he's not going to be in. So going with the same lines, and we were picking on Toffoli to score in his debut last game. Didn't quite get there. Was very close, but I think that second line too, Monahan, Toffoli, and IFL, the new guy line, is going to be looking to grab. I think they're looking to get some more points on the board as well. So I'm looking forward to this one against Nashville.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned Toffoli, and I'm going back to the well for the WST parlay tonight for a TT 73 goal. We'll hit that later on in the program when we finish things up. But let's hear from Bones right now. And it's interesting. A lot of talk about hitting and physicality this morning, maybe as a bit of a precursor to what we'll see tonight with the Nashville Predators coming to town. As we mentioned, the Preds have completely turned their season around. Didn't look like they'd be a playoff team. People thought they'd be selling a bunch of players. They ended up being a buyer. Well, Jason Zucker acquired by the club in a bit of a couple moves. Anthony Beauvillier as well. But here's what Bones had to say on Nashville this year and coming into tonight.
They're scoring a lot more goals. They're much more dangerous on the rush now. And Bruno's got them playing a different style, but they hang on to the puck more. They try to create more. They're still a big, still a physical team, but they are better offensively now than they have been. They get great goaltending every night, much like ourselves. So I think he's loosened them up a little bit, and they can score. They're dangerous.
Yeah, this definitely should be a good one. Bones knows his team's got to be ready for a team that it's been a long time since they were on the wrong end of a result in regulation. A lot of talk about hitting this morning, and Bones was asked of his squad who the biggest and best hitters are on the Winnipeg Jets.
Who's our best hitter? We got a few of them. You mean pound for pound, but Adam uses his body. I mean, Dilly, Pionk, when he gets a chance, he's a very strong guy. Being in those guys, I guess.
Neil does a lot of it for a smaller defenseman.
But he's very,
That.
yeah. Listen. That's how he plays. He gets engaged in the game. He's very powerful on his feet. Again, not the biggest guy, but never shies away from contact, and that's what you really look for. Are they avoiding contact? Are they avoiding physicality? And absolutely not with Neil. He's in there every game, doing his best to get his hits in there.
Do something for the team when a small guy.
Yeah. We all know what to expect from Neil every night. We're never surprised when he's in the middle of it.
Yeah. He said he used to do way too much of it, like growing up and stuff. He kind of had to be reined in a lot. Do you ever have to rein him in?
No, he's probably younger. He probably chased the game a little bit, and with time you learn there's times you just let the game come to you, and usually when the game comes to you, you're getting more hits on. You don't have to chase all over the ice. The game will eventually come to you, and when that opportunity is there, take advantage of it.
You said the root of it all is he's real competitive.
Oh, he's a very competitive guy. Very competitive.
All right, that was an interesting back and forth, I guess, from Freezer. He must be working on something on Pionk, and we'll hear Pionk on that topic in a minute as well. Have to admit, Remo, I think I'm fully with Bones that Adam Lowry would be the number one guy when you think of the hit parade from the Winnipeg Jets. But I do like where Friesen's going with this. I mean, we've looked back at the hit numbers over the course of the year, and for a number of seasons, Neil Pionk is always right up at the top, if not very close to it.
Yeah, when I think Winnipeg Jets hitters, the first guy that came to my mind was Brendan Dillon, and he's one who got suspended earlier this year for that big hit, Noel Achari. So that was my pick. But yeah, I think Adam Lowry, remember him firing up the team in Vancouver.
The hit in Vancouver was incredible. It turned the game around.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I think those would probably be my two picks. And Pionk, I mean, he gets rough too, and we all remember his shutting down McDavid in that bubble series where the Jets swept Edmonton, in the 4-game sweep where they dominated McDavid and Draisaitl and caused more losing for Edmonton, which was fantastic. So
it was the closest sweep of all time. I mean, there was a triple OT win in there. I think another overtime win.
I think 3 of the games went to overtime.
Our recollection, of course, was it was just an absolute quick 4 games, see you later, which technically it was, but we all remember what we'd like to remember. We'll get back. We've got the lines up here. We'll get back to this in a second, but let's hear what Bones had to say. A bit of a lineup and Gabe Vilardi update.
Same lineup tonight, or is that the plan? Or
At this point, the plan is the same lineup.
Okay. And you have a couple guys still dealing with the flu then, or?
Yeah, it's out there. Hasn't left yet.
Is there anything new with Gabe Vilardi's situation, or?
No, he's working out. It's slow coming around, but he's not skating in the next couple of days. From what I understand, that could change tomorrow. He could walk in here tomorrow and say, I feel great, let me go on the ice. So at this point, we're keeping him off the ice until he tells us that.
Sure. Two shutouts in the last 3 games. I mean, what does that say about your commitment to defense? And obviously you didn't like the game in Vancouver, but...
Yeah, but that's our bread and butter. We keep the puck out of our zone. We create offense, some good team defense. We're creating a lot, both in the Seattle game and last game. We had a ton of chances. We're always about trying to minimize the chances against.
All right, so there's Bones. And Reem, if you want to bring those lines back up, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that they're going to roll those same 4 lines. That every line had a strong game against Washington. Everyone was in. Everyone played considerable amounts of time, which was a really good development. So Connor Scheifele, Ehlers. The new guy line, as you just coined, Iafallo, Monahan, and Toffoli. The third line with Appleton, Lowry, and Nino. And then the fourth line, which had a real solid game. Rick Bowness talked about that on yesterday's show with Cole Perfetti on the right side, Barron on the left with Vlad in the middle of line number 4. Morrissey, DeMello, Dillon and Pionk, and the other new guy, Colin Miller, on the right side, along with Dylan Samberg. And Hellebuck going again tonight. Not surprised. This is the big divisional game. You thought that would be priority to get Hellebuck in. I am interested. I think you can take it to the bank that LB is going to play one of the next 2 games I wouldn't be surprised, though, if it's Friday night against the Ducks, and then Helly can kick things off in Columbus in that sort of late matinee game, 5 o'clock on Sunday.
One thing to watch for, we're on Jennings' watch here. Anytime a Jets player is up for a trophy, we got our eye on it. But Brossoit needs 25 games to get his name on that Williams Jennings trophy. If the Jets do finish with lowest goals against average, he's got 17 right now, so he needs 8 more games. I think they got to try to get him the 8 in this final stretch here when they're playing like every second day, right?
Is that true?
Yes.
Really? Okay, that is news to me. Well, I mean, he's probably good for another 5 or 6 starts for sure. Guess the question is even if you go in just for a couple of minutes during the game, you get credit for actually a game played. But you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. That'll be something that we're going to pay attention to going forward. All right. Well, listen, we're going to hear from Neil Pionk a little bit later on. Coming up in just a couple minutes, we're going to get the latest on the Nashville Predators with Max Herz. Talk about this amazing turnaround that they've experienced coming into tonight's game. First up, let's thank a few sponsors, including the great guys over at Consolidated Supply. Got to shout out Spicy and the guys over at Consolidated Supply. It is, I know we got a snowfall warning right now, and it doesn't really feel like spring, but I'll tell you what, we're into March, folks, and this is going to come, and then it's going to go, and we're going to be working ahead on all sorts of projects, and whether it is for your business or your home, our guys at Consolidated Supply are ready for a big spring and summer. They, of course, are the leaders in irrigation systems, artificial turf, golf carts is the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, both new and used. They've also got other great options for your property, including amazing hot tubs and incredible outdoor kitchen options. And of course, they're also the experts and the go-to guys for small engine parts and repair. Check out Consolidated Supply online at cte.ca and head on down to their showroom, open to the public at 1395 Niagara Road East. Tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And again, their website for more on Consolidated Supply is cte.ca. A big congrats to Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery. The new location's finally open. Head on down and check them out at the new spot in the south side of the city, 452 Dover Court Drive, a beautiful new facility, a great home for the Manitoba Battery gang. And, they always have great deals. I mean, the best prices in town. They beat the pants off the big box stores, period. Shopping local. But they're in such a good mood with this new location that any battery you need that's regularly priced at over $60 is now $10 cheaper when you pick it up in store. And check this out. If you need AA's or AAA batteries, skip the cheap versions and grab some industrial grade energizers for only 40 cents a piece. Those deals and much more. Grand opening specials right now for Manitoba Battery. 452 Dover Court Drive's the new location, the original spot, 1026 Logan Avenue. And of course, you can always order online at manitobabattery.com or give them a call at 783-8787. Bella's thinking about spring. If you need a new look or just want to refresh the cut, get on down to Modern Man Barber Shops with 8 locations in the city of Winnipeg, including their newest standalone locations on Plessis Road and Pembina Highway, right by Bishop. Modern Man, guys, has you covered with a variety of grooming services, including haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. We can book your look via modernmanbarber.com. And make sure to give them a follow on Instagram as well at Modern Man Barbershops. And just before we continue the festivities here, got to shout out our friends at Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. Had such a great event with WSTers and the Canadian Club gang at the Whiskey Festival event we did at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame that we looking forward to doing it again. But in the meantime, Whiskey Fest is over, but the great taste of Canadian Club's always waiting for you at your local Manitoba liquor marts. Check out their display when you pop in next. And remember to always enjoy responsibly. All right, let's get ready for this big Central Division tilt tonight at Canada Life Centre and welcome in Preds host Max Herz, who is not on the trip today and joins us from, looks like a pretty nice day in Music City. What's up, Max?
It is great to be outside. As I told you guys before I came on, I'm not doing this to rub it in the Manitobans' faces that it's, 65 Fahrenheit here right now. It might honestly be warmer, but it's great. My Celsius conversion is not very good, so I won't attempt to cut that in half for you guys. But no, it's gorgeous out. Team's away. I'm here. It's one I don't mind missing. I'm soaking up the sun right now. So,
well, I mean, it's great to be able to chill. You got the big basketball tourney at Bridgestone right now. Tell you what, though, you're probably going to miss being in the building tonight, though, because this is a matchup we've been looking forward to for a few weeks, and man, with what the Predators have done over the course of the past month, this is going to be a game that I think everyone would love to be at tonight. Max, let's back this up. The team was sort of struggling, win a few, lose a few. They were getting ready to go to Vegas, and then they get the word, oh yeah, by the way, after that 9-2 beatdown you just took, your U2 day at the Sphere is canceled. The rest has been history, but how has that story been delivered in Nashville, and how significant was that move by management just saying, all right, no, you're not taking care of your part of the bargain, you're not doing that, and what has that done to the team in the month since it happened?
It definitely woke them up, and it was obviously much more multifaceted than, hey, you guys aren't going on your trip, but after that 9-2 loss to the Stars, which was on Thursday night, and first there was a game in St. Louis on that Saturday after that, and then no game until Tuesday night in Las Vegas. So they had a lot of time in between. And St. Louis is a 45-minute flight from Nashville. So the change of plans, got them home for a day and a half off with their families because the game before that was a day game. So it kind of ended up being a positive in that way, but it wasn't just that 9-2 loss. The Preds were one of the few teams that had their bye week after the All-Star game. Almost everybody else's, including, I think, the Jets, was before. So there were no games that last week. And as Andrew Brunette said, those were union games that week. There were some games that were nothing until 2 minutes left, and everybody who was still playing needed the break. So the Preds end up getting the All-Star game, getting the break, and then out of that had 3 straight home games. First one, they were lucky to win against the Coyotes in overtime. Second one, they got thoroughly outplayed by the Devils, were winning way longer than they deserved to be, end up blowing it in the third period. And then in the third one, they got absolutely killed by the Stars from the jump. Matt Duchene is rubbing it in your face and then playing the Tootsies after. It's an awful feeling. And it was really those 3 games in tandem that led to the team coming together. And there were team meetings too on top of the cancellation. And the players have said, especially Ryan McDonough has been strong about this as an alternate captain on the team. It wasn't just that we canceled the concert. They addressed it in the normal hockey way as well. But it's definitely an inflection point. And I think it's such a funny league-wide story that happens. And it's a 12-game point streak.
Listen, it's it may be coincidental. It's fun for guys like us to talk about it because, hey, listen, if you just run the table after something like that happens, you got to go back to it. But hold on a sec. After that beatdown from Dallas, did you say Matt Duchene brought the guitar out and went and played at Tootsie's after the game?
It was actually the night before, I believe, but the Stars were not going to publish the video unless they won the game. So it was their mom's trip, and I think all the players and their moms were at Tootsie's the night before. And Duchene did stuff like this many times when he was on the Preds. He had a partnership with Gibson. Their guitar store is 3 blocks away from the arena, things like that. So it's not something he hadn't done before, and it wasn't like, oh, screw you, Nashville. It's something he loves to do. But the funny thing to me about all of this, and we've heard it now many times this season, and maybe it happens in Winnipeg, I don't know, but Ryan O'Reilly's in his first year with the Preds, and a lot of media members who covered him in St. Louis, Toronto, or other places before that, or just the Canadian national media who loves him, they know that he plays the guitar and he plays the ukulele. And the first question everywhere he goes back for the first time, like when they went to St. Louis for the first time and he got a signed guitar by Pearl Jam from Braden Shen as his 1000th game present, all the reporters were asking, oh, have you been playing guitar in Nashville? Have you been going up on stage? And he was asked this at his introductory press conference over the summer as well. And he very humbly, as he always speaks, says, oh gosh, I'm not qualified to do that here. There's so many great performers and songwriters. I would never do that. So with the decision the Predators made to bring him in as the number one center last offseason, that makes me laugh every time. Not that O'Reilly has any idea about Duchesne doing that, but it always makes me laugh.
I mean, listen, I mean, we followed the team very closely. I mean, they made big investments in Ryan Johansson and in Matt Duchesne, and we all know how that worked out. And I mean, there's many people, I'm not saying you are saying this, that said that, Duchesne, like there's a lot of great things about Nashville. But if you're coming there making $8 million a year to play for the hockey team, that needs to be your prime focus 24/7 to help your team win. And I'm not sure that was the case. And I'll give him a lot of credit. He's kind of bet on himself on this 1-year deal in Dallas and is having a much better season. And I think has sort of jump-started his career. But for a guy like that, I mean, when you look back to what he was doing off the ice and what he was given Nashville, it's not surprising it sort of ended the way that it did, to be honest.
Well, I don't think the music stuff was a distraction. I just think it's funny that O'Reilly views it so differently. Like, I don't think that impacted his play. But 2 seasons ago, this is my 3rd season really actively covering the team in an on-air radio role. 2 seasons ago, Duchesne, Philip Forsberg, and Mikhail Granlund was the top line, and Duchesne and Philip Forsberg scored what are still the only 2 40-goal seasons in Preds history. Forsberg will likely, health assured, getting another one this year. You hope. He's close. But he was incredible 2 seasons ago, and he brought the best out of Philip Forsberg ever. And then last year, he just didn't have it. So I'd say this year, he's playing like he did 2 years ago. But it's nothing that he didn't show in Nashville.
You mentioned Forsberg and O'Reilly. I mean, those are the guys, and they've come here in different ways. O'Reilly had sort of been around. He had many options. He came here. They needed a number one center considering they moved on from those guys that we just mentioned. Philip Forsberg, very different. He was sort of at a crossroads in his career with the opportunity of potentially going to free agency, decided to forego that and stay here. Different paths to get here, but still, I mean, really connecting well together, driving that top line. And I would imagine both of those guys being the veteran presence and the players that they are, in a lot of ways, kind of the catalyst, along with, of course, Roman Josi, who we can't forget, the catalyst of this season. And in particular, this run at the most important time of the season that's got Nashville right back into the middle of the playoff race.
Yeah, tonight, tonight will be the 61st straight game that the top line is Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Nyquist. It's, first of all, the stability is unbelievable. Last season, the Predators were trying to figure out who was on the top line. Like, players making their NHL debuts last season were on the top line. That happened multiple times because they were just trying to get anybody going to play alongside Forsberg. And that trio this season, they've gotten more than they could have ever expected. And they were expecting big things, but just unbelievable stuff from Ryan O'Reilly and Gus Nyquist. Nyquist is just a passing machine. He's such a perfect opposite winger for Forsberg. Both those guys play on their off wing. Nyquist is really good in the corner and the hard areas, and Forsberg's great too. The NHL put out a graphic yesterday of all different parts of the offensive zone and which NHLer has scored the most in each part of the zone. The crease is Philip Forsberg, because he scores on rebounds and in the hard areas. But Nyquist is such a good corner and wall guy. He controls a lot of possession for them. And then O'Reilly, as he always has been, is so good in the house. He's good in front of the net, behind the net, playing caroms, making great plays in the offensive zone. So before this last stretch, and you guys are quick on that graphic. Good job. Before this last stretch where they had 12-game point streak going right now, it was basically the top line that was winning them most of their games with the scoring. They had scored over half of the points on the team, and that included Josi for a lot of the season as well. So The three of them in tandem with Yossi have been such great play drivers, and the big difference is lines 2 through 4 have done driving as well over the last 3 weeks.
You know what? I guess I should have included Nyquist right off the bat with the question, because he has been such a big part of that line. But I'll say this, and I mean, credit to the guys that he's playing with and making the most of the opportunity. He's certainly given the Preds major bang for the buck at 34 years old with 1 year left on his deal at just over $3 million a season.
Well, to me, he is very comparable to what Nino Niederreiter did for the Preds last year. And if the Preds were playing as well last February as they were this February, Niederreiter wouldn't have been traded. And Preds got a second-round pick for that. But I think the Jets are unbelievably happy with that trade, especially once you get him to stick around on a new deal. So it's really been the same. It's an underrated player who's a veteran, but has never been on a deep cup run team. So I think people don't really understand what they would be capable of in their early 30s on a top line role. And also, with Niederreiter, him and Roman Josi are best friends. And not that Nyquist and Forsberg know each other just because they're both from Sweden, but he's a beloved player. He's a veteran of great influence. He's a great person. He's one of the guys who has a bigger family. He had his third daughter during the season this year. So he's an incredible locker room presence, and everybody absolutely loves him, and Josi are very close too.
You mentioned the Niederreiter trade, and, that was at a time when, the Jets, you back up a month from last year's deadline, and the expectation was that, the Jets had that great start to the season. They would be very, very aggressive at the deadline. And then the team sort of played their way out of that sort of confidence. And it was a 4th-round pick for Vlad Nemetsnikov, who also re-signed. But the Niederreiter deal has sort of been the gift from last year that's kept on giving. And you mentioned about how, that top line has been established and has not broken up at all this season. We could say the exact same thing for our third line, if you want to call it that, the Lowry line, along with Nino and Mason Appleton. And, for him to re-up and sign a long-term contract here was a great sign moving forward. But I imagine he was lost. And, the reason I bring that up is that I remember, the reaction to that deal last year, being surprised, and some people being a little bent in Nashville because of what a popular teammate he was and player. I mean, everyone loves the guy. And then you changed it to this year, where a month before the deadline, I think a lot of people were expecting that the Nashville Predators were going to be sellers. And that team, to their credit, with the wins that they put together night after night after night, completely changed the situation that Barry Trotz was in, and this team ended up being buyers. I mean, fill us in on how that changed, as well as where Beauvillier and Zucker sort of find themselves in the lineup now that they've been acquired by the Preds.
Yeah, I really love everything the Preds did over the last couple of weeks. They make one sell move, which was the bigger move, in my opinion, trading Yakov Trenin as a rental to the Avs. You get a 3rd-round pick for that in 2025. There was also a prospect swap in there with a trade of did Graham Swart ever play for Winnipeg Ice, or is he just on Wenatchee now? I don't know.
You know what? He may have been there
yeah.
last year.
He's on Wenatchee now, but I don't know if he got there a different way. But either way, there was a prospect swap in there, and that was the sell. And people thought maybe Alex Carey, another pending UFA, would get dealt in a similar way. And Barry Trotz said, and I could not agree with this more, the reward of the asset you would have gotten for Carey for the rest of the season is less than the cost of team chemistry that you would have disrupted with the deep pair of him and Jeremy Lauzon, who have been incredible together this season. Lauzon is having the best season of his career. Carey is as well, in my opinion. And he didn't want to disrupt that, which is smart to me. He could have gotten something for him, right-handed defenseman, UFA, rental, but
I can tell you his name came up on our show a lot over the past 3 weeks, and I'm like, guys, the more this team keeps on winning, and now all of a sudden they're just about in the playoffs, now they're in a playoff spot, I have a hard time imagining that he'd be on the move. But that those right-shot defensemen that can play significant minutes are in high demand around the league.
Right, and would you rather have him or Colin Miller? I don't know, but that's what ends up happening instead. But anyway, the Preds make the one sell move, and the justification for it being Trenin was they have basically a player in line, Zach LaRue, who's in the AHL right now, who's kind of a young Brad Marchand, who is next in line to be that penalty killer, bottom six guy, agitator, physical presence on an ELC for the next 3 years. So they're saving some money there. They still have buyouts on the books for the next few years. That was the calculus with why Trenton was the sell. And then they make two really low-risk buys for guys who have connections to either Barry Trotz or Andrew Brunette. Villiers for a fifth-round pick. It's been traded a lot the last 14 months, but you see what you get there. Give him a look. And then also Zucker for a sixth-round pick, which was a steal because nobody had the cap room for him the rest of the year. He was with Andrew Brunette in Minnesota. Brunette was an assistant coach and also in the front office there. So I think that's the big one. And I think if Zucker performs well over the next month, he's a multi-year contract candidate here this offseason.
Well, and yeah, I mean, that was, essentially getting him for free, taking the contract. And at that point, to your point, and that's one of the things that I think the Winnipeg Jets and Nashville Predators deserve a lot of credit for. Now, again, maybe they were in different situations to begin the season and as you got into the first couple months with the way that, the season started. But both teams having significant cap space to be able to handle it. I mean, Barry Trotz played that perfectly, waiting it out and getting a guy that I think everyone thought would have garnered a heck of a lot more than a sixth-round pick is all of a sudden there for pennies on the dollar. And now all of a sudden will tell us where's he fitting in the lineup right now?
Yeah, and Zucker, he hadn't formally requested a trade, I guess, but he was scratched the last two games he was on the Coyotes for trade-related reasons. So he was going to go, and he made it seem like in an interview that I did with him yesterday that the Preds were not the team he was expecting at the beginning of the week, and that's where he ended up at the end of the week. So it's the legacy of David Poile doing a great job with the cap the last 2 years. The Predators, Barry Trotz has said this, they are clear to spend to the cap, which maybe 10 years ago they weren't. That was before I covered the team, but they're clear to spend to the cap, but they had flexibility that in the last year, the flat cap was really valuable. And also the Preds have 9 draft picks in the draft this summer, which that sounds like a normal amount for a team that sold last year, but all 9 of those picks are in the first 4 rounds.
Speaking of prospects and picks, we've got to talk about goaltending for a minute. We're so blessed to have Hellebuck here, and he signed the long-term extension. He's probably going to be a Jet for life. Juuse Saros became that guy when Pekka Rinne moved on, and you want to talk about passing the torch. Rinne, Saros, and now there's Askarov coming on, and he's been lights out. He was a first-round pick. There were talks earlier on, at least around the league, that maybe Saros would be available. Was that ever realistic? And how do you see this playing out going forward? Saros is the guy now for the rest of the season and into the playoffs, but how does the Askarov asset maybe affect what they do, whether it be signing or trading a guy that would have such high demand around the league, considering the dearth of quality number one goalies?
Yeah, it's they have 3 really good options. At some point, they could trade Saros, which obviously this may have been the highest value time to do it, and they didn't do it. So it could happen in the summer, potentially. Obviously, could happen at any time. But they could trade Saros. They could trade Askarov before he really establishes himself as an NHLer, which would fetch a good return depending on who wants him. Or they could keep them both for at least next year, which is Saros' final year in the contract. But Barry Trotz has made it clear they want to extend Saros. They've been actively talking to him. I think because of something with the CBA, they couldn't formally announce an extension until this summer. So that's the time when we'll find out for sure about that. But it was always going to take a massive haul to move Saros. And the team that always made sense over the last year would have been the Kings with a Byfield-led package. Probably missed your chance at that now with how great Byfield has been this season. So they're not really in it as much. I guess they're going to go with Talbot and Riddick and see who's going to start first round. I don't know which of them it will be. But then this season, it felt like the Devils were the team that made sense. Maybe a Dawson Mercer-led package. Not sure if the Preds wanted a defenseman, but Nemitz or Seamus Casey was an option. And they have goalies they want to get rid of who could be the backup for the rest of the year. But the Preds winning changed all that. So they continue to deal from a position of strength in their hand. And Askarov gotten to interact with him a few times in training camp and then during his call-up this year. He's learned English very well, which a year ago now he did not have any. And he is an unbelievable character. Like, you guys have seen the diving poke checks and bench pressing the net and closing the net after a shutout. His human personality is just as fun. He learned English listening to Drake and 21 Savage. He spent his summer in Kyrgyzstan on the Mediterranean. He is awesome. He is an incredible human being. He is going to be an absolute blessing for the NHL if he plays in the league for any amount of time, because if he is allowed to by his coaches and I guess the opposing team and referees to a degree, who are going to get mad when he celebrates and things like that, he can change what goalies do from a persona standpoint.
Max, I have to ask you just quickly about, before we go, I mean, listen, this team very solidly in a playoff spot right now. I mean, I think if they didn't make it, it would take a pretty significant collapse. I mean, they're not going to win every game for the rest of the season, but they've put themselves into a spot with 20 games left in the year, less than that, that they are clearly the favorite for one of those 2 wild card spots. What's that done to the Preds fan base, who I imagine a couple months ago sort of thought that they were in a period right now where this was the rebuilding time and the playoffs was a bit more of a long shot?
I've been really impressed with the fan base this season especially, and I'm really always impressed by them. But this season especially, from preseason on, and the Preds play much fewer preseason games than most teams. So they only played 2 home preseason games this year. I hope you can still hear me. Someone's mowing their lawn on my street.
Oh, yeah.
But they had 2 preseason home games this year, and they were packed, which is amazing. Like, you never take something like that for granted. The fan base was really excited about Andrew Brunette and Barry Trotz, the renewed joint vision, 2 familiar names. Obviously, Trotzy, the first coach of the team for 15 years, and then Brunette scored the first goal in team history. And though he was only on that first Preds team and left in free agency in 1999, he's a beloved figure for, if nothing else, that goal alone. So the renewed excitement has been amazing from the jump this season. And then to get back from the 5-0 road trip and feel those crowds over the last week, it's been absolutely amazing. And the Jets will see it, I think, in the second to last week of the season, right? That could end up being a big game for both teams too.
You know, I was just talking with some friends over the course of the weekend and thinking about potentially making a quick trip down to Music City for that game. So maybe I have to meet you for a cold one at some point if that happens.
Yeah.
But let's face it. I mean, the Jets right now have games in hand on both Dallas and Colorado. It is a dogfight. I mean, there is a legitimate chance the Jets could win this division. And how about bringing it back to like 2018? First round matchup, Preds Jets. How good would that be? And I think we're going to see the energy on both sides tonight as what that would look like, albeit a month and a half early before the playoffs start.
Yeah. The part from on the Preds side of who you would potentially play in the playoffs, the Preds' final game is way earlier than everybody else's. It's on Monday. I think it's April 15th, maybe. But it's on a Monday, and then there are 3 more full days of regular season games. So the Preds will obviously hope to have clinched by then if they can continue playing this well. Long way to go. But it's going to be other games that determine where everybody else falls with Wild Card 1 and Wild Card 2 and tops of the divisions. And, I mean, with this format, there's 4 teams that the Wild Cards could realistically play right now.
Well, we'll focus in on this one tonight at 6:30, and then April 9th back in Music City. And tell you what, I think everyone would be in for 7 games between these 2 teams at some point in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Max, great stuff. We're going to have to do this again with you. Really appreciated the conversation. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll see you in person the next time the Preds get here to the Peg.
My pleasure, and if you guys do come down, let me know. Our radio analyst for home games is Jay Moore, a fine native of Deloraine, Manitoba. So we love our rowdy Manitobans on Preds Radio.
Good stuff. All right, anyways, appreciate it. Thanks for the convo, and we'll look forward to Puck Drop tonight.
See you guys. Thank you.
There's Max Herz. Give him a follow on Twitter at Max Herz Talks, the pregame, postgame, and intermission host for Predators hockey on 102.5 The Game in Nashville. All right, we're going to kind of take the focus back to the home team coming up in a couple minutes with Murat. We'll also hear from Neil Pionk, who had some interesting comments about some of the hitting questions that Freezer and the guys were asking earlier. But first up, let's give some thanks to our sponsors as we get ready to welcome in Murat of The Athletic.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Big thanks to Little Brown Jug. We'll probably be cracking a few generics after that extended show on Friday, planning to get going at 11 a.m. on trade deadline day, which also happens to be the third anniversary of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Also want to thank Wallace & Wallace. They're gearing up for a big spring. It's going to be very shortly. Hopefully the snow will leave, and we'll be seeing the Wallace & Wallace fences and trucks all over the city. They're the fencing and overhead door experts in the city since 1946. And while fencing will be everywhere come the melting of the snow, right now with these crazy fluctuations in temperatures is the time that's putting the most stress on your garage door. Now, if you need a new garage door, they've got the best selection in town as the Clopay dealer in Manitoba. But to prevent downtime for your garage door, you can give Wallace & Wallace a call to book your maintenance and inspection service call today. For commercial and residential overhead door sales and service, there's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. Speaking of looking good, you got to shout out our pals over at F Apparel. When the snow melts, you know what comes up next. Wedding season, people getting out. A real time to maybe spice up that wardrobe, fellas. And if you do need to do that, get down to Winnipeg's #1 menswear spot, and that is F Apparel. They have incredible deals on custom suits beginning at just $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. If you are getting married or in a wedding party, definitely talk to the fellas at F about a 15% discount when all the guys get their suits at F Apparel for the big day. They've also got great deals for high school grads if you're looking to get that young man a suit that he can wear far beyond his big day, moving out of the school age years. F Apparel, find out more online, book an appointment. It's fepapparel.com. And pop down and see him at 190 Smith Street. And just before we bring Murat back in, I got to shout out our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Speaking of spring and summer, cannot wait for the upcoming fishing season. If you're looking for a world-class fly-in fishing opportunity right here in Manitoba where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours, Aikens Lake is the spot. As incredible as the world-class fishing is, even a guy like me caught a couple master anglers there. It's the hospitality of the Aikens team and the Turin family that puts the experience way over the top. Find out more at aikenslake.com, and you can also check them out on all their socials over at Aikens Lake. All right, let's welcome in our pal Murat of The Athletic. Murat, great to have you on the program. What's going on?
Hey, great to be here. Just having a cozy writing day in my world. And I said this before I got on, but let me do this again. Congratulations on the anniversary.
Well, hey, listen, I mean, it's a perfect opportunity for us to thank you for all your great contributions to the program. As definitely one of our favorite regular guests. I will say that without any hesitation. And we wouldn't have been able to do the 3 years without great stuff from folks like you. So it's great to have you back on the program. And it's a perfect time to give you props for basically calling your shot, or Kevin Cheveldayoff's shot. You know, we had you on Wednesday. We were talking about what was left on the market, how things would look. You did a piece in The Athletic, the perfect trade deadline for the Winnipeg Jets. And lo and behold, we got the news that Tyler Toffoli's coming to Winnipeg. They get a right shot defenseman. And I got to say, you pretty much called it in ink before it happened.
I feel very powerful this week. You know, this is some of my finest go buy a lottery ticket type of moments here. I like that. And the crazy thing too is, I had done some Tyler Toffoli homework at the time that I wrote that, and at the time that I was calling him the ideal forward to add in advance of Winnipeg trading for him. But I've been able to do a little bit more homework in the time since then, and I'm even more sold on the idea. I think he's even better at finding soft ice in the offensive zone than I thought, and I wrote about that all over again today. So it's really quite a good time to be a fan of, I guess, of quality additions and smart work by a hockey club.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, and I will point people to your latest at The Athletic, projecting Tyler Toffoli's impact for the Jets down the stretch and into the playoffs. And I had the exact same feeling watching him shift by shift with that second line, and I follow and Sean Monahan on Monday night. He has a certain knack about just finding the areas where he can get the puck and do something with it, more often than not shoot it. And, listen, I got a lot of time for Iafallo with his versatility and where he's at right now. I think we all agree that, come Gabriel Velarde's return, in all likelihood, Iafallo will move down the lineup, and it'll be a top six that includes left wingers, Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers in some fashion, centers, Scheifele and Monahan, and right wingers, with, of course, the Tyler Toffoli and Gabriel Velarde. I could not help but think, watching that game, what that line would look like. And I know there's a lot of people that just want Nikolai Ehlers on that top line playing with Mark Scheifele. I couldn't help but think what that line might look like with Nikolai Ehlers being the guy that is carrying the puck, that is drawing so much attention as he always does. And with his brilliant passing, what might be possible with Tyler Toffoli benefiting from all of that soft ice, if you will, that Nikolai Ehlers creates when he's in the offensive zone.
That's the way I drew it up as well. So I suppose I'm cheering for my own storyline. If you go back to that article last Wednesday, it's Ehlers, Monahan, and Toffoli on that second line. That comes from a belief that the Jets believe in Connor Scheifele and Velarde, and we can not go down that rabbit hole again, but I think it's a belief the Jets have, and that they'll look to find success with if they can. Ehlers, though, Ehlers, what is he? He's a zone entry machine. He surprises people in the offensive zone. He attacks the zone with speed, and he's very good. I think I've run these numbers a few times, and if you look over the last 3 years, nobody has more primary assists amongst Jets forwards than Nikolai Ehlers does, and it's not because he's the most perfect pinpoint, never makes a mistake passer. I think Mark Scheifele is the most consistent passer on the Winnipeg Jets, but it's because Ehlers' speed opens up lanes for his teammates, and those teammates have been doing good jobs of jumping into those spaces and then getting that pass. So I like the idea very much about Ehlers being a primary puck transporter on that line, because when I've been watching Tyler Toffoli clips, and I'm a few games worth of his career into going shift by shift by shift, the thing that he does that really impresses me, from the moment he gets to that offensive zone blue line, he is looking for space. And that might mean accelerating, using a first few steps that are really quick, actually. I'm more impressed by his acceleration than his top speed. He's making quick decisions out there. He can dart into space. He can get into open ice. The other thing that he does very cleverly is he'll attack the zone with speed and then kill that speed, so that he kind of gets lost in coverage a little bit. He doesn't rush to the net so that he's picked up by a D-man right away. He kills that speed, looks for where the opportunity is, and then floats into that space, often just in time to receive a pass. So if he's not the first forechecker, and if Ehlers has led a rush and the puck is on a Winnipeg Jets stick, and Ehlers is drawing attention by virtue of his speed, who better than to float into that soft ice or to target that soft ice than Tyler Toffoli? As just one more thought on that, please read the story. There's a few clips of him doing that really, really well. But Washington is a man-to-man defense team. So, there are triggers from when they switch to their full man-to-man coverage. But if Toffoli is getting lost in 1v1 coverage, where it's literally somebody's job at some point in that shift to follow him all over the zone, I mean, when zone defenses come into play, when different defending schemes come into play, I'm even more optimistic about what he can do.
Yeah, and again, we'll see how he looks tonight. The one other thing, and we talked about him finding the soft ice in the space. The other thing, if he wasn't doing that, he had his ass right in front of the goaltender in the blue paint. And, there are certain guys that have a knack for going to where the puck is going to be. And there are other guys that know that the puck is going to be going to that front of the net and get there. And with the stick, we thought he might have actually had that goal. It ended up being credited to Alex Iafallo, but certainly not shy to mix it up with the big defenseman that will be inhibiting your moves. And with that comes plenty more opportunity. And, we've seen the third line do that quite a bit. I mean, Mason Appleton, whether it be passing or putting it on net and having Lowry or Nino Niederreiter in the mix, that's the other part of Toffoli's game. Certainly no fear to get into that blue paint and, with a stick and a scoring knack for being able to put those opportunities and chances that come your way when you get there away.
Yeah, I love this graphic too. That's him right there in the middle, center slot, right? So goal scorers know where to go. Tyler Toffoli is a direct player. And going all the way to the net, like you were talking about, is an enormous part of it. Count me amongst the people. When that deflection went in, I looked at the team's reaction, like who's taking credit for this? Because I actually thought that Iafallo tipped it, and maybe it hit. I thought maybe it hit Toffoli on its way in. Clearly, it didn't. They would have updated that. But that was kind of my first read of the play because Toffoli was all over that net. He was providing a second layer of screen or a second tipping opportunity as well. And it's a place that he was darting into and out of and into and winning his battles for space throughout the night. So you like that. The other thing I got to give the guy credit for on that exact play, on that exact goal, it starts with the chipped puck into Washington's zone. Iafallo gets there first, creates a little bit of chaos, actually. Iafallo's 1-on-2 for a second. Toffoli's next in there. He actually uses his body to outmuscle a defender, take the puck, and now he's setting up chances for Iafallo. There's a bit of cycling that happens, and then he parks himself in front of the net, which leads to that eventual goal that Iafallo scores. So his usage of space on the puck is just as impressive as his usage of space off the puck in the offensive zone.
While we're talking about Toffoli, let me bring up Iafallo for a minute because, when Velarde comes back, and look, let's cross our fingers and hope that this team is entirely healthy at some point. Well, most importantly, for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But when that happens, and Iafallo presumably is the guy that's out, there's a number of options for Iafallo. When you look at him, the way he's playing right now, what he brings, especially in how that projects to playoff hockey, where do you think the best fit for Iafallo is in the Jets lineup if those top six are all in the lineup taking up spots on the top two lines?
I mean, if the top six, it follows the Rick Bowness roster rules, then the third line is going to follow Rick Bowness roster rules. And that means Nino Niederreiter, Adam Lowry, Mason Appleton are going to be taking on the tough competition. So, like it or not, impact player or not, capable of going to the right areas at the right times and doing, quality work in spurts or not, I think he's a fourth line player on that idealized, fully healthy team. There's a bit of a track record with Iafallo, Nemesnikov, and Cole Perfetti, where they were really dangerous actually as Winnipeg's second line or secondary scoring line for a time earlier on in the season. There's also a possibility that Morgan Barron is in there in games that Cole Perfetti isn't playing in. That's kind of that Iafallo and Nemesnikov combination, I think, could be just think of it as a fourth line. It's so nice to think of a Winnipeg Jets fourth line that can create. And we're not just talking about how it can create, but likely they are scoring big goals if the Jets do anything big in the playoffs. And I think that the top six is going to be the players that we've talked about. I think the third line is going to be the Lowry line as we've known it. So I don't think there's anywhere else for him to go. And I think that Winnipeg has an advantage in its depth against most teams in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, I bring that up because I've said this at the start of the year. I mean, I have always thought that the Jets might get to a point in the season where Iafallo actually is the guy that's playing with Lowry and with Nino. And listen, I know there's some people that'll take shots at Appleton. I mean, Appleton is doing exactly what he's expected to do night in and night out. And, he's produced at a level this year that I think was beyond just about anybody's expectations. and continues to, make strong passes, puts it pucked into the net. It's been more assists lately, but I think he's got 5 in his last 5 games, and that line has really started to go again with both Nino and Lowry getting on the board goal-wise. But knowing what we've seen in the past in IFL, coming to Winnipeg and what he brings to the table, I still think that at some point that might be an option. But let's assume that he's in the mix on that fourth line. The other thing that we have now here in Winnipeg, and again, hopefully we get to this point with Velarde back and the full gamut of forwards available to Rick Bowness, it certainly creates a level of competition for spots in the starting lineup that we have not seen here in Winnipeg probably since the 17-18 season.
Yeah, are you kidding me? There are viable arguments for Cole Perfetti not to be an everyday player. He produced like a top 6 scorer in a secondary scoring line. He's going to be an enormous part of the Jets' future if all goes well. And also, Morgan Barron has a little bit of Stanley Cup playoff, heroics or lore on his side after that game that he played against Vegas last year. And he's a bigger player. He may have the coach's trust in certain situations a little bit more. And that's before getting into the David Gustafsons and Axel Jonsson-Fjallbys and Rasmus Kuparis and Dominic Toninato came up and played a solid stretch. That's not referencing, Brad Lambert and Nikita Chibrikov, who I don't think are in the mix for minutes at all, but they've had tremendous seasons taking the steps forward they'd like in the AHL. That's not name dropping Rutger McGroarty, who a lot of fans are clamoring for. There are a lot of quality options. I think that on a healthy Winnipeg Jets team, the top 9 is set. There's a little bit of rotation likely between Barron, Perfetti, and whomever else on that last line. I think Perfetti gives you more by offering some power play minutes, but there are going to be times where Rick Bowness decides that that's not what he's looking for. And then you can go to the 13th through 15th, 16th forwards and say there's an NHL player here. You need that kind of depth, I think, if you're going to do anything special in the playoffs, as long as the top guys deliver too.
Let's move it to the blue line. Now, what were your early observations of Colin Miller?
I mean, brief. He took the shortest shifts amongst all Winnipeg Jets that night. He was on the ice. He did the thing that he needed to do, and he got off the ice. It's a great way to come away with solid underlying metrics because you never stay on the ice for long enough for trouble to happen, and you make sure the trouble doesn't happen. And because you're playing a really high-energy version of your 35-second shift. So for me, I'm just going to need to see more of Colin Miller, I think. I think that that would have been a smart approach, especially after a few hectic days. You got some travel in there. You're learning new teammates, new systems, all that sort of stuff. I think that was just a really responsible approach to a first game with a new team. And then as he gets more and more familiar, we can see when does he get into opportunities to use that booming shot of his? What's his coverage like? He's had tremendous numbers as a third pairing type of defenseman for a lot of years. And once upon a time, he had decent numbers as a top 4 guy too, though I'm not sure he's going to work into that. So I'm cautiously optimistic about his impact for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because, I was having some conversations with friends, before we saw the game on the weekend, before the Monday game when the guys were actually arrived and available to Rick Bowness. And I was wondering as to whether it would be the same 6 and he'd be a 7th guy that might get in, whether he'd be in as he was playing on a third pairing with Dylan Sandberg, or potentially whether they tried him at some point, which they may still with Brendan Dillon, which would allow Neil Pionk to play maybe some better matchups along with Dylan Sandberg. Much like the forward group that we just talked about, that addition, albeit at a relatively low cost, has given Rick Bowness some plenty more options when it comes to filling out his lineup card with his 6 defensemen.
Yeah, and I suppose it'll be a little bit of a look at fit and things like that. I expect he likes the idea of a lefty as at left defense and a righty at right defense, so that likely gives Miller the advantage on Nate Schmidt, even though Nate Schmidt has actually delivered some really quality results in the last several months on that third pair. It's a unique role those guys get to play, and I trust Dylan Sandberg to defend well in that context quite thoroughly. I think there's a lot of good results to be had there. So that, for me, works, whether it's Miller there, whether it's Neil Pionk there as well. I don't get the sense that the Jets are in a hurry to take minutes away from Neil Pionk. Now that he's perhaps one of the couple of Jets who was hitting all the way to the final buzzer in that poor game in Vancouver, scored a great goal the other night as well. He's always been the sort of player that even when he struggled, they haven't taken him out of the top four usually. And I think that he's delivered a couple of important moments for the team in recent games. So I'm guessing that we don't see Neil Pionk bumped down to that role, given his push of late. And I just got to give the guy credit. That play that he makes on the Mason Appleton pass, where he gets his hip out, he gets his shoulder down, and he's boxing out and protecting his space on the ice from the moment that pass comes across. That's some pretty elite stuff offensively, and he should get credit for that play he made on his goal.
Absolutely, and that's actually exactly where I was going with it. Pionk, it had been a while since he'd scored, but that move that he made, the aggressiveness that he showed, the confidence to take it to the net and scoring the way that he did, I think that was a little bit of a statement early in the first period with the new guy in the lineup for the first point. And again, that speaks to competition in the lineup, knowing what is at stake once you get to the playoffs where nothing is promised or guaranteed. And I'll tell you what, that's exactly the sort of reaction you want for some other players that, frankly, might be getting pushed a little bit by a new acquisition coming in for a draft pick.
I mean, that's a fun interpretation at the very least. Like, I'm not in Neil Pionk's head, and I don't know if he's going into that game saying, well, hey, guys, like, I need to put out some elbow room. I'm the top four. I'm the second pairing right-handed defenseman on this team. But it's a fun way to look at it. It's to think that he may have stepped up or made a point of making impactful plays, or, there's a little bit of, I don't want to say risk profile to that play specifically, but there is a little bit to jump into the play after there's been a battle on the wall for so long. I mean, if he has it in him to say to the world, hey, it's my turn to assert myself here, I mean, that would only be a good thing for the Winnipeg Jets. If that sense of internalized competition does build up, this is a funny story that I didn't include, I think, in my Hermantown piece when I was speaking to the Pionk family and the Sandberg family about their upbringing. But to get a sense of how competitive Neil Pionk is as a person, he's 10 years old one day. Dad's outside mowing the lawn. Mom's out. Mom's trained for, I think it's a full marathon. Could be a half, but it's a marathon of some kind. She's running her first one. She arrives home. It's a sunny day at the Pionk house. Neil Pionk asks her, like, hey, how'd you do? Did you win? And she says, no, I didn't win. I finished, though, which was my goal. And Neil turns to her and says, like, well, why'd you do it then? Like, the idea of doing anything at all at any age for any reason not to win, like, didn't compute. And they had like a little discussion over it for a few minutes. I think he's wired a little bit differently than many of the rest of us are.
Well, and you know what? He's a guy that's wired for the playoffs too. I mean, for all the conversations we had last year about Pionk's struggles, it wasn't lost upon me, who was at the top of the Jets scoring leaders at the end of that playoff series and who was playing his ass off every night, especially when Josh Morrissey was out. It was Neil Pionk. And I just think that the ads that the Jets have brought have not only filled some of the needs that they were looking to, but I think can also bring out the best in other players. And listen, that is maybe a rose-colored glasses way of looking at it, but that is the best case scenario when you make acquisitions, when you expand the roster, and you bring in players like this for a team that's been battling for first place all year. That level of competition at this point in the season, going into the playoffs, for teams that truly have an opportunity to do special things, to go deep into the playoffs, to win series against other great hockey teams. That effect of bringing players in is something that can go a long way for individuals and for the greater course of the team. Murat, moving forward into tonight's game, thoughts on the Predators? I mean, this is a team that a month ago I would have thought there was no chance we'd be talking about them comfortably in a playoff spot, and yet here they are right now. They went from a seller to a buyer, albeit a couple really nice value, low-cost acquisitions in Beauvillier and Zucker. We were kind of talking about this as being a three-team race, and it is really a three-team race, I think, for the top three. They're still far enough back that I can't see them challenging any of Winnipeg, Dallas, or Colorado for third spot. But I don't think this is going to be an easy out, especially when you think about a difference maker in Roman Josi and a difference maker in UC Saros in the net that can really flip playoff series on their own.
Yeah, and I think Rick Bowness was telling the reporters who were at Morning Skate today about how they don't really park the bus anymore. It's not wait for Roman Josi to go do something magnificent. They're holding on to pucks. They're making plays. There's some offensive sense to them in the last little while of play. To add Zucker and Beauvillier to that, now they've got a little bit of finishing ability. And I do think that the arms race between Dallas, Colorado, and Winnipeg is the most fascinating thing. It is an absolute shame that, at least one of those teams will be eliminated in the first round. But that's not to say that Nashville is a pushover either. I think that that's an interesting sort of subplot to the division. They really don't have anything to lose. They made their they made their acquisitions for bargain prices. They've surprised everybody by being here at all. And I think that there's something kind of fun about a team like that. They went from, I was thinking about Carrier as an ideal addition, Alex Carrier for Winnipeg on the right-hand side at one point. So okay, well, they're not going to get rid of anybody because they're a very, very real team. So I do that thing, though. I overlook them a little bit. I got to be honest. I think there's 3 dominant teams in the Central Division, and yet they're one of the hottest teams in the league. They have added some offensive firepower, and they have a couple of game breakers on that roster.
Yeah, and I don't know whether they feel like it, but I think you could make the argument that they are sort of playing with house money. This is beyond where most people, maybe themselves, thought that they would be. But once you get to that point, especially when you get into the playoffs in a Western Conference that's so wide open, a lot of really good teams. But even if you finished in the 8th spot, the difference between Vancouver and Dallas and Winnipeg and Colorado and Edmonton, really the teams that are in the mix for that top spot, you can make an argument. And listen, that makes a dangerous team right now. Which brings me to tonight. I think this is a great test for Winnipeg. The Jets want to keep pace with the Colorados and the Dallases, get back into first place right now. You've got the Ducks on Friday, then Columbus, and then a very tough run of games out on the East Coast, which hasn't traditionally been kind to Winnipeg in the past. This is a big game for Winnipeg to try to, fully move on past what happened in Vancouver, build off yesterday's game, and get on a bit of a roll going into a couple games of teams well below the playoff line before you up the weight class and go into a place like MSG against the Rangers.
What's the old line about hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard? I think that the Winnipeg Jets, as constructed, are talented from top to bottom. They've worked hard for so much of the season. They've delivered quality results. But to think of the depth conversation we were having, look at a team like Nashville that they're going to be playing against tonight. I think the key for Winnipeg is that when you have that many good players from top to bottom, there shouldn't be free ice ever, right? There are enough good players on the Winnipeg Jets hockey club that there shouldn't be free offense for the Nashville Predators. When Winnipeg has the puck, there's no line on this team that's just a chip it in, hope you might get it back, and if you do get it back, there's no real threat of scoring. Everybody on the Winnipeg Jets is at least a credible threat to produce offense should they get extended offensive zone time. And I think one of the things that does is it wears teams down if you keep your foot on the gas. If that hard work is always there, in concert with all of that talent. And I think that now that the stretch run has begun, we're inside of 20 games left to the playoffs. You're looking for signs like that every single night that Winnipeg is willing to put their foot on the gas, keep it there, and take advantage of their talent to make sure there's nothing for free at any shift. If they do that, we might even see a much more impressive team, a more impressive looking version of the Winnipeg Jets down the stretch, despite the elevated quality of play.
Agreed with you on that. Murat, before we go, kind of moving away from tonight and talking Jets and the Preds and specifically the home team, we've had a couple days to sort of digest everything that happened on Friday. Any big standouts to you as far as players that were moved, trades that really interested you? When you look back at the trade deadline, what stands out and who really impressed you making moves? I know you've said obviously Winnipeg was right up there. Who else?
Yeah, I got to go to Colorado for that. That trade with Buffalo where Byram's already scored a pair of goals. He's fit right in and contributed to the offense. And certainly it hasn't been Buffalo's favorite season of all time. I think they were expected to do bigger things than they did.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a hockey trade, though. Casey Middlestat has already produced for the Colorado Avalanche and has given them a second-line center that they've been looking for. And there's a little bit of hype and a little bit of buzz building around Colorado that all of a sudden their roster has snapped into place. So I think that's a team to keep your eye out on. I don't know if you felt this way, but there have been chunks of this season where I've overlooked Colorado, and I don't think I gave Colorado enough respect as a contending team to see them add Middlestat, to make the other moves that they have, to supplement their depth, to get Walker as well, so you partially replace a little bit of what Byram was offering you. I think that's a very high-quality Avalanche team. And then you got Dallas on the other side of that too.
Yeah, well, the Avs, to your point, like I still put them, I mean, even in the Central, I'll include Nashville. If we're talking about 4 playoff teams from the Central Division, I put them a solid 4th when we're talking about goaltending. And listen, Georgiev has been strong, and I believe he was at the All-Star game, if I'm not mistaken. But listen, I'm taking Hellebuck, I'm taking Saros, and I'm taking Ottinger over that. And the other thing is that, and this is what happens when, you win the cup, and they seem to be very, very top heavy. And they'd been searching for that spot in the middle. The Johansson ad just didn't work out, and obviously he was out as Walker came in. I will be interested to see how Middlestat performs come playoff time. This is a guy that's been in Buffalo his whole career, so he has no experience with that. But he is a very, very talented, gifted offensive player. That is what they have been looking for. They get Nichushkin back. Like the Avalanche today, I mean, that goes without saying about a Hart Trophy level season for Nate McKinnon. They certainly do look like a more formidable team that can compete with whoever they're going to get in the first round, never mind if they can advance second round or third round in the playoffs than maybe they were 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think about Buffalo's inability to make the playoffs for so many years. And one of the things that's done is that some of these guys who are getting their first real taste of playoff action are older than you typically get for a playoff rookie. So heading into last playoffs, Winnipeg versus Vegas, I know there was some talk, well, Jack Eichel might not be ready for this. He might not be ready for this. I was all in on that. I believed that Jack Eichel was a substantial strength for the Vegas Golden Knights heading into those playoffs. And I think that their center depth was a real strength. I'm in a similar boat with Casey Middlestat. I don't think he's a raw rookie. I don't think he's 20, 21, 22. He's mid-20s. He's got a lot of years in the NHL. He's consolidating the second particularly strong season. I think this is the best one he's had yet, but he's done good work for a while. I'm not as inclined to think that he's that first-time playoff performer, playoff ghost that we've sort of seen, where oftentimes, like, I guess I only really think through a Winnipeg lens, first and foremost, but Kyle Connor struggled until he didn't. 3 assists, I think, until his big Game 5 against Nashville in 2018. Nikolai Ehlers, 0 goals and 7 assists. I think that same playoff run. I would have some concern about 22-year-old Cole Perfetti. I just think Casey Middlestat's further along in his development. I'm a little bit less concerned by that.
Well, and he's certainly surrounded by some guys with not just playoff experience, but cup winning experience. And that certainly counts for something as well. One other team I wanted to ask you about, we rarely talk about them. They're kind of one of those teams in the East that doesn't get a lot of pub, but the Hurricanes. And the Hurricanes were a team that, for years were more than willing to stand pat with their team. They didn't like rentals. That was just their philosophy of the way of doing things. It changed a little bit with the acquisition of Jake Gensel. But the one that fascinates me is Kuznetsov. Speaking of a guy that at his height can be an absolute game breaker, has won a Stanley Cup before, that was in with the Hershey Bears a week ago, and now gets an opportunity to play on a very solid team with some really good talent around them. I mean, what do you make of the Canes situation now, having bucked their own trend of not doing much, looking to buck a trend of getting swept in the conference finals every time they get there, albeit still being good enough to win 2 rounds of the playoffs in a very tough conference?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say on the Hurricanes is I've long respected their approach. They've been a team whose depth was of great quality for a number of years now. Their fourth lines have been quality, but the strength of that team is a heavy forecheck, a real puck hound game, dominant possession team. And they've struggled, to turn some of that possession into real legitimate offense outside of their stars. So I think Gensel helps with that. That's a big add. They've also struggled in net depending on who's playing, and guys get hot, guys get hurt, and the cycle repeats itself. So that's one that I'm not sure. I know that they've gotten some quality performances of late, but that's an area that I worry about. The keys, though, is when you have that many good players, ideally that's an insulative property for a Kuznetsov type player to come in. And I think they were always eventually, inevitably going to have to make a Gensel type move. I think somebody who drives scoring chances and finishes them, they needed more of that, in my opinion. And the last thing that comes to mind, I think it's an Athletic story. I would want to cite this correctly. I don't want to take credit for some other organization's work, but there is apparently a lot of interesting conversations between Hurricanes head coaching, management, ownership about Kuznetsov in the lead up to his acquisition. Also, I don't know if you know the story I'm talking about, but this idea that Rod Brindamore was saying, or maybe it wasn't even Brindamore, but there was a dialogue about, we know that the old Kuznetsov is in there. We just have to figure out a way to bring him out. I think that's a calculated gamble on behalf of the Hurricanes, and I love that for them. I think that's the type of guess that you make or gamble that you make when so many of your other big rocks are in place and they're a good team top to bottom.
Well, and listen, Dundon likes a good deal. And the fact that, his $7.8 million salary is going to be cut in half, and they've got the potential of having a first-line level center playing maybe down the lineup at 50% of his contract, probably was a good way to get the owner on side with the move. Last one, because you mentioned goaltending, and man, we've talked about goaltending so much this season in particular areas, including playoff teams. Were you surprised at how quiet the goaltending market ended up being this year?
I mean, I guess so. Especially when it was rooted in all of those Jacob Markstrom rumors. The idea that, Calgary and New Jersey were pretty far down some type of discussion. I certainly don't know the ins and outs of that situation, but that sort of primes the back of the mind that, hey, maybe some of these teams that are good everywhere else are going to go swing big in that way. Now, New Jersey, it was Allen and from San Jose Kakkonen who they added. So they did take some guesses, but it's not of the level of impact that you might have wondered about for them. So that's an interesting one for me. I wondered many, many times if there are teams who may have thought themselves to be in the Connor Hellebuck market once upon a time when he could have been a rental at this stage, depending on the alternate universe, much worse off version of the Jets. I wonder how many teams are kicking themselves now, that I guess they'd have no control because he signed anyways, but there's just this sense that so many teams were so close to having it sorted out. And I don't really have faith in those guys turning the New Jersey Devils ship around, but I'm not a goaltending coach, so what do I know?
Yeah, well, I'm sure Lindy Ruff does because he got fired. Good thing he got his extension, though. But I think you can look at that. I mean, listen, Jersey did have some significant injuries that definitely contributed. But, I'm pretty sure they're 31 out of 32 teams in save percentage at like 890 or something like that. And, that just doesn't cut it in the National Hockey League, and they're paying the price for it right now. Murat, I'm very intrigued with you spending a long, devoted writing day today heading into tonight's game as to what we might see in the Athletic. We'll be all over it. Thanks so much, and looking forward to your next piece coming out very soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate it. There it is, our pal Murat Atesh at WPG Murat on Twitter. And, of course, subscribe to The Athletic for all of Murat's great work covering the Winnipeg Jets and the National Hockey League. All right, Reem, you know what? Before we get to another guest, the kind of taken away from hockey for a minute to some hoops, I do want to get to those Pionk clips before we move on. And, if you joined us a little late, we heard from Rick Bowness this morning, and Bones was being asked about hitting in the game, hitting on his team, and in particular about Neil Pionk by Paul Friesen today. Pionk spoke today, and we'll get his thoughts on Jets Preds tonight, as well as the physicality that often ramps up around this time of year heading into game 83 and beyond.
Okay, wait, sorry. Which clip did you want? I wasn't.
The first one.
The first, okay.
Yeah, first Pionk on Jets Preds, and then a little bit more on the hitting too.
Yeah, it's always a heavy physical game, Central Division game. So we kind of know what's happening, what's coming every time we play these guys. So we'll be ready tonight.
And from the physicality point of view, you and Brendan have really been ramping it up. It seems. I don't know if it has just been coincidental, but every night between the two of you, there's anywhere between 8 and 10 hits. Is that just a time of the year thing, or are you starting to pay a little bit more attention to that part of the game as well?
It's just part of what we do naturally, and then I also think we feed off each other. He sees me hit a guy, and he wants to make some louder noise. So a little bit of both. We feed off each other, and it's what we've always done. So
184 to 179.
In what?
In hits.
Who's winning?
You're not. So,
check the stats on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do a fact check. But is there any friendly competition?
Well, now there is. Now that it's close, yeah.
You want to know the block shots?
I'll mention it. Yeah. We'll divide it up by pounds too. See who's up.
Pounds per hit.
Yeah, pounds per hit. Yeah.
I'm glad we waited to play those Pionk clips, that clip in particular, until after speaking with Murat, because, when after the story, he told us about his mom in the marathon. It makes it even more hilarious that he immediately got down to a competition between he and Brendan Dillon as to who has more hits, dude.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be that close with him and Dillon. Like, when I think Neil Pionk, I don't think physical hitter is. He's one of the smaller guys on the team. Maybe that's why everyone's telling me I should have made him a skinny guy when I did the Nintendo Ice Hockey, but I made him a medium guy because he does play tough and throw the weight around. So you can see that from Neil Pionk. And he does have some offense, which we saw last game. But yeah, he said pounds per hit. I think it's hits per pound. No, I wasn't sure if he had his math right there.
We may be dividing the wrong thing. The bottom line is that Pionk does not shy away from the hits. And if you look at, year over year, he's been right. I believe one of the seasons he actually led the Jets in hits, but certainly of the blue liners has been right up there near the top. Here's another clip from Pionk, and this, obviously was Kelly Moore there before, kind of getting into that funny conversation involving he and Brendan Dillon. But here's a little bit more on that on Pionk having to pick his spots, laying the body as a smaller player and someone that is on the blue line, knowing what can happen if you pick your wrong spot.
I know I'm smaller, so I can't run around and try to make those big hits because I'll end up falling or getting myself out of position. So there's definitely as I've gotten older, there's been more of a conscious approach to it.
You always like this, even as a kid, or when did it start that you realized you should do this?
Yeah, it used to be worse. I think every coach I ever had, including my dad, had to sit me down at some point during the year and say, you can't do that. You're doing it too much. So that kind of tapered off towards the end of my college career. Got a little more mature with it. So, but yeah, it's something I've always done.
Where'd it come from?
Growing up with four brothers, probably. Yeah, it's just we were all kind of that way too. I guess it's just how we grew up in the basement and ramming into each other and hitting each other. So I guess that's carried over into my entire career.
What's been the worst result of it over the years?
My youngest brother's gotten the worst result of it over the years. A lot of tears, a lot of scoldings from mom. So yeah, she used to get pretty mad at us.
Oh, man, some funny stuff with Neil Pionk today. And as someone that has a brother, albeit younger, who was bigger than me early on in our development, I know exactly what he's talking about when you think about those rivalries between one brother to another in the basement with the sticks. Here's one more from Pionk, though, just focusing on tonight's game and the big picture, the battle in the Central Division that the Jets are in right now.
I think we're in a good spot. We're in a heavy spot. We've had a couple games that we didn't love, but I looking at the positive side of things. We've had some games where we played really well defensively, not giving teams a lot of chances. So, of course, we went through that stretch there in the middle of, I think it was November, December, where we won 8 in a row and we were playing really well defensively. So, working our way back towards that, and we should be good to go.
All right, so there's Neil Pionk. He'll be back up with Brendan Dillon tonight on the Jets blue line as they drop the puck 6:30 p.m. at Canada Life Center. We are going to get to the Coolbet lines coming up. Oh, we had a banger last night for the lock shop. A couple beauty parlays coming through. Thank you again to Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers for that big comeback. But coming up in just a minute, we're going to meet the newest member of the Winnipeg Sea Bears, David Muenkat. Got to shout out Spicy and the guys over at Consolidated Supply. It is, I know we got a snowfall warning right now, and it doesn't really feel like spring. The season ticket drive is on right now. I've had great response from a number of people involved in the Winnipeg Sports Talk Circle that have already done it, and of course, booked their seats for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Go to winnipegjets.com/deposit. If you deposit on a package for next season, you can get priority access to playoff tickets, much like myself and other season ticket holders have. Cannot wait for the spring, but before the spring, we got to get to the weekend and through the trade deadline. Of course, we're not too far off between talking lots of Bombers, and of course, Princess Auto cannot wait to welcome Blue Bomber fans to Princess Auto Stadium coming up this year when the Bombers get at it. Princess Auto is also a huge supporter of curling in the province. I mean, they've been behind Team Jennifer Jones, and now we're all pulling for our Manitoba teams, including Princess Auto's Reed Carruthers, who's 4-1 right now. Right now, they're tied for second, I guess, technically, with the Botcher rink in their pool. Northern Ontario, who Manitoba beat, is one game or half game up, if you will, to use a baseball style term, 5-1 right now. Matty Dunstone, representing Manitoba, 3-2 right now after his loss last night to Brendan Botcher. Of course, Princess Auto is not only a great sponsor of our teams and our curlers, but Winnipeg Sports Talk, but also the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them in-store, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Thinking about the playoffs, I know there'll be a lot of Winnipeg Jet fans and WST listeners wanting to maybe get some new gear for the whiteout. You know where to do that. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, Winnipeg's true sports superstore for over 40 years, family-owned in the Peg, with thousands of pieces of Winnipeg Jets merchandise, all the jerseys, with your favorite players, name numbers, done however you want them, not to mention, hats, hoodies, Q-zips. They've got it all. Great Bombers section, NFL, Major League Baseball, and, of course, for people that are playing the game, the biggest and best hockey section in town, not to mention snowboards for spring break and all that cool stuff on the Kings skate, snow, and surf side. Pop by and see them, Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, and make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And couple days with no Jets, but then we go Friday, Saturday night, late night, 9:30 starts. Can't think of a better time to get together with the gang at your local Boston Pizza to watch the game with sound on the big screen and enjoy some weekend ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings and gourmet pizzas, and heck, any day, 7 days a week. If you want to get it hot and fresh to your door, you can order online at bostonpizza.com. Well, the excitement for Winnipeg Sea Bears season number 2 continues to build, and Coach Mike Taylor continues to add studs to the squad. And the latest acquisition is Canadian star David Muenkat, who joins us from Frankfurt, Germany today. David, welcome to Winnipeg and Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Big news today. I mean, we just continue to hear guys that we kind of became familiar with last year in the league coming to Winnipeg. I mean, first things first, tell us about signing with the Sea Bears, how it came to be, and your excitement level on coming to the Peg.
Super excited, honestly. Obviously getting to see, from afar the support that the players are getting and, kind of how those seats in the arena filled up and the love that the community showed to the team. Definitely going to be exciting to play in front of those fans. How it came to be, Teddy Allen, who's a friend of mine, hit me up, asked me what my plans were for the summer, and, just kind of pitched Winnipeg to me. And, obviously he's a guy that I have a huge amount of respect for, great player. So, that piqued my interest, and yeah, the rest is history, so they say.
You mentioned the crowds here. I mean, it was so cool to see the building full and them grow throughout the season. How big a part of what you saw from the visitors' side helped make you make the decision to come to Winnipeg and sign with the Sea Bears?
Honestly, the best way to put it is just like, as a player, when you start playing, like, everybody dreams of playing in front of the big crowds and hearing all those people cheer for you and support your team. And being able to obviously see that and just, obviously talk to the guys, the two U Sport players that were there last year, and Teddy himself, and just, it makes it more fun. It makes basketball more fun. It makes you play harder. So it just overall makes you want to just be on the floor more, when you have that kind of support. Obviously because CBL is a summer league and a lot of guys come in and, they're not trying to do too much, or, they just want to have fun and be able to play the game they love in front of people, friends, family, etc. So when you have a crowd like that where, it's nothing but love and they're cheering as loud as they can, win or lose, it's obviously going to attract your attention.
Well, it was it literally was a magical season for the organization. I would say the city and the fan base continued to grow, and people are fired up, especially with the work that Coach Mike Taylor's doing behind the scenes to build this squad. You mentioned Teddy Allen; he's a favorite of ours here. Was obviously was MVP. I mean, a huge part of the success the team had, and doing it off the court as well by doing a little recruiting. It's nice to it's nice to see. David, you're from Brampton. We actually had Alex Campbell on recently, and I know you're a little younger than him, but tell us a little bit about your background, because I understand you weren't one of these kids that was all in on basketball when you were 6 and 7 years old.
Yeah, so my dad's a huge soccer fan, so that's what we grew up playing. And that was just, the main sport. Obviously, I watched basketball, but I never really played, played at the park, goofed around with friends. But when I got into high school, stopped playing soccer for a little bit, kind of hit a growth spurt. My parents told me that maybe I should switch over to basketball. At first, I wasn't really, on board with it. My parents had tried in the past. Especially my mom, she tried several times to get me to play basketball, but I was just like, no, I love soccer, because that's what my older brother was doing. That's what my dad loved. So I wanted to stick with it. But when I got to high school, I gave it another shot. And, at first I was like, I wasn't good at all. I wasn't good at all, so it was kind of discouraging, but I just wanted to stick with it. I wanted to see where I could go if I just applied myself. And, the more I applied myself, the more the results started to show and the better opportunities presented themselves. And I just stuck with it. And yeah, here we are.
Next thing you know, you're out at St. FX with a very decorated U Sports career. I mean, a runner-up for the CEBL U Sports Player of the Year. I mean, for someone that started relatively late, what was the university experience like, and how much did that help you prepare you to, potentially be a pro? I'm interested as to when you even thought pro basketball might have even been in your future.
Yeah, when I first started, obviously the goal was to get an education with basketball. It's a popular sport in North America, so my mind was just set on being able to go to school. But like I said, the more I applied myself, the more I started to have, my ambition started to grow as well. And the older I got, the more I realized that, maybe playing professional basketball is actually an attainable goal for me. St. FX was a great experience. I enjoyed the time I had there for sure. Just being able to play for Coach TV and having a coach who helped me, develop my confidence and just be able to play my game and grow as a player and as a leader. It was something that I feel like I really needed, especially at that time in my career, because it's such an important piece that a lot of people don't really take in.
You move on to the CEBL, and I mean, getting that taste of professional basketball, doing it here in Canada. Fill us in on making the move into that league and how important it's been as you continue your development for a player that started the game far later than probably just about everybody else that you're playing against.
Yeah, my first year I didn't know what to expect. Obviously guys that come and play in the CBL have experience playing in other leagues in Europe, and they're professionals at the end of the day. And I was just a college kid, but after a few practices and games, my feeling was just that I belong. I felt like if I kept working, then I could be at that level, and maybe even at a higher level one day. But it was good. It encouraged me to work even harder because it shows the gap between university and professional sports. At the end of the day, this is what these guys do for a living. So if you want to be part of that world, then you have to put in your fair share of work.
You, David Muenkat's with us, newest member of the Winnipeg Sea Bears. Tell us about your style of play. I mean, obviously a big forward, but you come with some pretty impressive accolades on the defensive side of the ball, including the Player of the Year in the country.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I first started playing, I didn't have any, I didn't have any real basketball skills because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't learn how to play basketball at a young age. I had to reach myself. So stuff like making a layup or how to shoot a jump shot or, things like that, I didn't really have a feel for. So when I started playing, the only things that really kept me on the floor were playing defense and rebounding and obviously, being able to play above the rim. My style of play is just athletic forward who uses his athleticism on both sides of the floor. Obviously playing defense, my size allows me to guard multiple positions, and my athleticism allows me to be able to stay in front of, smaller guards at times and maybe fight in the post with a bigger opponent. Offensively, I like to get to the rim, finish at the rim, obviously dunk, highlight plays and stuff like that. But, obviously being out here in Europe, having to expand my game has also been exciting. So I'm excited for the summer.
Well, I know Coach Taylor mentioned in the release how impressed he's been with your development. Tell us a little bit about this opportunity in Germany and what it's like being a pro hooper out in Frankfurt.
Oh, man, it's been a blessing. Just being able to, just first of all, just say that I'm a professional basketball player. When people ask me what I do for a living, it's just been cool, because it's like the inner child in me is just, ecstatic because it's a few years ago, it was just a dream. But it's been a great experience. Appreciate, Coach Mike, shouting out my development, just having to expand my game, obviously, with me being an athletic forward and relying on my athleticism. It's a different game, because in college where I could get away with just playing bully ball, out here, guys are as big and as strong as I am, so I have to kind of play a different way. Really developing my perimeter shot has been one of the biggest things I've done this season, and I'm looking forward to bringing that to the summer in CBL because I feel like it'll help me, give me more opportunities to play above the rim, help with spacing on the floor, and make me more of a threat on opponents' scouting reports.
David, how's life off the court in Frankfurt?
Frankfurt's a beautiful city. If anybody's stuck on places to travel, I'd recommend Frankfurt. There's a lot to do, a lot to see. I'm enjoying it. I've been to the city, like the downtown, a few times. It's a beautiful place, especially when the weather's nice. There's a couple restaurants that are, pretty good that I've enjoyed. I've been out since I've been out here, and Frankfurt's just been a great place. A lot of tourists travel here, so you bump into other, Canadians or Americans and British people and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really nice place.
Hey, you mentioned the restaurants. I'm always interested when guys are playing in faraway lands. So what is the food like? Have you discovered a few things that you really do like, or is there some things where you have learned that you don't like is very much to stay away from?
Nothing so far that I haven't really liked. I've been to places like your typical sushi spots. I've been to Middle Eastern restaurants, Italian, stuff like that. So
it's very multicultural. It kind of sounds like Canada in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's actually a lot more multicultural than I was expecting, which has been a good, fun experience. I tell my teammates all the time that, like, if they would ever come to Canada, like, they'd be surprised because it's like, there's just so many cultures. So a lot of the food that I'm experiencing out here, I've already experienced. Obviously it tastes a little different, but it's all good nonetheless.
David, this has been so much fun catching up with you, and we'll look forward to seeing you in person when you get here with the rest of the fellas in May to get going with Sea Bears season. Just before we go, do you have a message to Sea Bears fans about what you're looking forward to about being part of this team next year, and considering the players that are already signed, including Teddy Allen, who's coming back, what this team might be capable of?
To all Sea Bear fans, I'm excited for this summer, excited to win games, to hear your cheers, and hopefully continue to give you guys something to cheer about. Obviously the ultimate goal is to win at the end of the season. And I think with the team that, Coach Mike is putting together, we give ourselves a really good chance. It's all about just getting out there on the floor and then putting the pieces together and, doing our jobs. So I'm excited.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you when you get to Winnipeg. Continued success out in Frankfurt. Good luck with the rest of the season. And we'll see you in the Peg when Sea Bears season gets going coming up in May.
Sounds good. Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Thanks to David for jumping on from Germany. Caught up with him a little earlier. And tell you what, we are looking forward to Sea Bears season. Last year was so much fun. And from the guys that we've talked to, it seems like the squad is shaping up pretty nice for Coach Taylor.
I think the expectations for how they're going to perform on the court this year are much higher than last year. Last year was the first season. You didn't really know how it was going to go. Were they going to gel? Well, they found their MVP in Teddy Allen, and they brought back, the hometown guy, Chad Posthumous. But, they're filling out the other pieces with some quality players.
And
so
he's
far.
Recruiting right now, as we just heard from Dave.
Well, and I think one thing we've heard from the guys that we've talked to is they saw the crowd, how the crowd reaction was here, and how much fun it is to play. And they brought in Alex Campbell, who we spoke with. I mean, these guys have championship pedigree, him and David Muenkat, and we didn't talk to Mason Borsier, but they brought him in as well. So they still, funny how it works is this is the roster right now on the Sea Bears website. They only got they got their 5, and I guess they got to lock down the rest here. As
Alex Campbell was an awesome interview. I really enjoyed that one, and I actually heard Mason Borsier chop it up with Christian O'Mell on OB Sports Show a couple weeks ago, and he seems like a really talented player that is going to bring a lot to it. So, bring on Sea Bears season. But first up, bring on tonight in the National Hockey League. Let's get to the Coolbet lines. 4 games tonight. The Kings are in St. Louis to take on the Blues. The Blues a plus 134 home dog. The Preds are a plus 134 road dog against your Winnipeg Jets. Jets minus 158 on the money line. Despite the recent hot play of the Predators. The Caps, who we just saw here on Monday, are in Edmonton to take on the Oilers. By the way, I told Dusty yesterday about the "Can't Catch Gretzky" chant that was started here in Winnipeg on Monday night.
Yes.
And kind of challenged the Oiler fans to maybe step that up and do it when Ovi goes there. And there's a lot of momentum. They don't have that same sort of creativity in Edmonton. They do have a great rink and whatnot, but it's just basically "Let's go Oilers" usually. But it sounds like there was a bunch of people in the lock shop chat, at least, that were saying they were going there and they can try and get that going. So be interesting to see if we can kind of nudge the Oiler fans a little bit onto. And I mean, where would it make more sense to drop that chat than Edmonton? So anyways, we'll pay attention to that tonight. Oilers minus 282 faves against the Caps. And then a really interesting game at night. Avalanche coming off that win in Calgary last night, right back at it. They are even money, and the Canucks are minus 117 home favorites. Canucks haven't played since Saturday night, where they played very well at the expense of the Winnipeg Jets. Now, let's just, while we're at it, season bets are up right now.
Sure. Here, one thing on that Avalanche game. So they won 6-2 last night over Calgary. And Nathan McKinnon, he played like a season low ice time because they had the game in the bag. You look at the box score, I think it was 17:57. Didn't play much in the third with them up. You're seeing a bit of load management there ahead of tonight's big tilt with Colorado and the first place team in the West.
Well,
Vancouver.
we went back and forth, and we'll get to our lock shop partner parlay in a second, which is up in the Coolbet exclusives. But if I had to make one wager tonight, only one, luckily I don't, but if I had to limit it to one, it would be shots on goal, Nathan McKinnon over 4.5.
Yes.
He just, and I mean, they're going to need him in this game. He'll be shooting from everywhere. I think he had 4 in the first period last night and then scored, which was big. By the way, I know there's a few lock shoppers with us here. Again, you could check it out noon before WST over on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel. We won the lock shop partner parlay at plus 550 thanks to that big comeback win by the Panthers. We also had the Avalanche and the Minnesota Wild to win in regulation. That came through. And we also hit a plus 850 prop parlay with a McKinnon goal, a Konechny assist, and a Jamie Benn point. And that was put together by everybody in the chat. So shout out to them. I personally appreciated it, knowing that I was riding on both of them. But anyways, McKinnon tonight over 4.5 shots. Take that one to the bank from yours truly. Now, if we do go to the exclusives, you will be able to see what we've got cooking in the lock shop. We've got the Blues to win. Great stat from our guy Rod Z. The Kings have lost their last 7, or was it 8, following a home win. Blues coming off a big win in Boston earlier this week. I think we're just kind of ride a team that's hot, that's playing for their lives right now. They're basically done, but not officially. So we got St. Louis to win. We've got the Avalanche Canucks over 6.5 total goals. And we've got Nate McKinnon, 5 or more shots on goal. That one's in there at plus 725. And if you go down, the one thing you're going to need to do is press load more because there's a bunch of golf things. But we do have a WST parlay tonight. I'm going back to the well with Tyler Toffoli. A Tyler Toffoli goal, a Josh Morrissey point, Jets to win, plus 450. So that is ready for you. I think Dusty cranked out an EST one too. If you're going to be watching this game, what do they got? McDavid 2 points, Nuge and Hyman both to get a point, Oilers to win in regulation. That one is plus 315. The other thing we did today in the lock shop was make all of our picks for the Players' Championship. Well, the biggest tournament of the year on the PGA Tour begins tomorrow at TPC Sawgrass. Scotty Scheffler is a massive favorite, plus 575. Normally, I would never bet a guy that low in a field as stacked as this, but this is different. I am going big time on Scotty Scheffler. In fact, I did say to myself that if the Panthers came back to win that game last night and cash the partner parlay, I was rolling it over into a Scheffler future. So I have done that. Keep your eyes out, though, before they tee off tomorrow morning. If you do want to get in on this, we put together a Lock Shop exclusive for the PGA, which is Scotty Scheffler top 5, Vic Hovland top 10, Will Zalatoris top 20. So we're just waiting for that to get dropped as well. But again, if you want to get in, I love betting on the golf. There's all sorts of possibilities for it. You can bet win, top 5, top 10, top 20 for everybody. And there's some smaller groups. And there's a bunch of exclusives, actually, in the golf boosted odds for the Players' Championship. Number of Canadians to make the cut. Any Canadian player top 10 is even money. Top 5. Pat Greggy's got a special. Homa, Thigala, and Minwoo Lee, all top 20. That one's 28 to 1. So anyways, check that out. Oh, and the Lock Shop partner parlay is up. Oh, and it's under the golf boosted odds. And whoa, we got a nice number on this one, 25 to 1. Scheffler top 5, Hovland top 10, Zalatoris top 20. That is there, 25 to 1. I will be making that wager as soon as we are done the show. Oh, and speaking of the players, I know, Remis, you've been doing a good job at cranking out our hockey DraftKings contests. Because it's the players, I did make a WST DraftKings contest. So if you haven't played in our DraftKings before, you can fire us a message. Do you need an invite, or can you just find our league by searching it?
Probably need an invite. Send us a DM. I'll put a link in the chat here.
Yeah, perfect. And you can just click on that. Yeah. It's $3, top 5 paid. I think I made it 40 up to 40 players. And again, DraftKings. I love the DraftKings golf. You just pick your 6 guys. You pray that they make the cut. They get points for everything they do. And the top 5 win. Have you done your lineup yet for tonight, Reem?
For hockey, I have. Not for golf. Should I go? I don't usually have a lot of success in golf fantasy, but hockey, I just made it during that last interview. So I am set, and I am on Toffoli to score. I think it's going to happen. He's on power play 1. We will see.
I love it. So anyways, jump in on our DraftKings contest if you want to have some fun with us as well. Hockey and golf up right now in the Tournament League lobby. Other than that, 6:30 puck drop tonight, so we should get this pod up, and then back tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be awesome. Ken is going to join us, and we will also have none other than the Strevolution himself, Chris Strevler, on the show tomorrow, Reem. I'm fired up to have Strevy back on WST.
Yeah, he's back in Winnipeg. He's doing an appearance this weekend. I showed it to Darren with the Bombers, who's setting that one up. So, we're recording it in the morning, and he's actually going to be on the Bombers YouTube channel as well. So doing a bit of a car wash. So happy to be included here.
All right, well, Strevler time tomorrow on the program. Ken Weeb, reaction from tonight's game, a look ahead to the finale of the homestand on Friday night. We got to thank Murat Tesh for jumping on. Max Herz, great segment on tonight's game. And David Muenkat, of course, everyone joining us live on YouTube, all you podcast listeners, and without a doubt, the sponsors of WST that make this show happen each and every day. Folks, get outside, enjoy the weather, and enjoy this hockey game tonight, 6:30, big divisional matchup between Winnipeg and Nashville. We'll break it all down for you tomorrow, live at 1 o'clock on YouTube, and just after 3 p.m. in your podcast inbox on another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk with Ken Weeb and Chris Strevler. Tomorrow, we will see you then.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.